Welcome back to Kleppers Corner. Today in history, the only show where we take one random square on your wall calendar and say, oh, this is where the universe dumped all its leftover plot twists September 18th. On paper, just a Tuesday in September. In reality, a day where emperors get stabbed, constitutions get confused, buildings get cornerstones, freedom gets declared, newspapers get founded, peacekeepers crash mysteriously. Jimi Hendrix says goodbye with a power chord so loud you can still hear it ringing 55 years later. So buckle up. We're going to Rome, Washington, Santiago, New York, Manchuria, Sweden, and the dark underbelly of 1990s internet bureaucracy. And if that doesn't sound exciting to you, congratulations. You're probably on the ICANN board of directors. Segment 1, the assassination of Domitian, 96 AD. Let's start in ancient Rome, where on September 18th, 96 AD, Emperor Domitian was assassinated by his own palace staff. That's right, he was stabbed in the back, which is the Roman version of a bad Yelp review. Domitian was the last of the Flavian dynasty, and by all accounts, a pretty terrible boss. Paranoid, tyrannical, executed senators like they were scratch-off tickets. His staff finally decided, you know what? HR isn't going to fix this one. Out came the daggers, out went the emperor. The funny thing about Roman emperors is that their job security made modern CEOs look stable. Elon Musk, at least, only gets ousted by Twitter polls. In Rome, your quarterly review involves senators hiding cutlery under their togas. Domitian's death ushered in the era of the 5 good emperors, which, honestly, sounds like a boy band created by the History Channel. Segment 2, Washington lays the Capitol cornerstone, 1793. Fast forward to 1793, George Washington lays the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol. And he did it in full Masonic regalia. Because nothing screams, we're building a democracy, like cosplay for a secret society. The Capitol was designed in neoclassical style because the founders thought, we want to look like Rome, but without all the stabbing in the back stuff. Spoiler alert, didn't work out. And here's the kicker. The actual cornerstone Washington laid, nobody knows where it is. They've searched with metal detectors, nada. It's the national version of, I put it down somewhere, honey. Only instead of car keys, it's the symbolic foundation of American democracy. It's either under the Senate, the House, or, let's be honest, in a Smithsonian janitor's closet next to Amelia Earhart's flight goggles. Segment 3, Chile declares independence, 1810. September 18th, 1810. Chile says, thanks, Spain, but we're going to start seeing other people. Actually, what they said was, our king is kidnapped by Napoleon, so technically, we're single. Chile's first junta didn't immediately mean independence. It was more like, we're just going to hold the fort while dad's away. But then came fighting, betrayals, exiles, dramatic mountain crossings. Basically, Game of Thrones, but with ponchos. And here's the twist. Their independence heroes hated each other. The Carrera brothers versus Bernardo O'Higgins. Imagine if Washington and Hamilton settled the revolution by subtweeting each other. That was Chile. Eventually, O'Higgins won, which is hilarious because he sounds less like a liberator and more like your Irish dentist. Segment 4, the Fugitive Slave Act, 1850. September 18th, 1850, Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act, or as history teachers like to call it, the moment the middle ground vanished. This law basically deputized every American into becoming Dog the Bounty Hunter, but for slavery. If you refused, you could be fined or jailed. Even worse, the law literally paid judges more money to send people back into slavery than to set them free. That's not just biased. It's like if referees got double pay every time the Patriots won. The backlash in the North was immediate. Churches resisted. Abolitionists mobilized. Regular folks rioted. Boston turned into an episode of Law & Order Antebellum Unit. It radicalized the North so fast you could practically hear the Civil War warming up in the bullpen. Segment 5, the New York Times is born, 1851. Just 1 year later, September 18th, 1851, the New York Times publishes its first issue. Back then, it was just the New York Daily Times. Today, it's the failing New York Times, depending on who you ask. Its mission was to be serious, sober, and objective, which, in 1851, meant not running with headlines like, Aliens ate my horse, details at 11. Within 2 decades, the paper took down Boss Tweed, proving that investigative journalism could actually topple corruption. And people say newspapers are dying. Nah, they've been killing politicians since the 1800s. Segment 6, the Mukden Incident, 1931. September 18th, 1931. The Mukden Incident. Japanese soldiers set off a tiny explosion on their own railway and said, "Oh no, the Chinese did it." Guess we'll just invade all of Manchuria. It was the world's deadliest version of "my dog ate my homework." The League of Nations looked at this obvious false flag and said, "We strongly condemn this," in writing. Japan walked out, and the message was clear. International law was about as effective as Facebook's terms of service. This was the first domino that made Hitler and Mussolini think, hey, maybe we can get away with this whole invasion thing too. Spoiler alert, they did, for a while. Segment 7, Dag Hammarskjöld's mysterious death, 1961. 1961. Dag Hammarskjöld, Secretary General of the UN, dies in a plane crash in Africa while trying to negotiate peace. Official story? Pilot error. Eyewitnesses? Yeah, we saw another plane shooting at him. Convenient, huh? It's one of those mysteries where every powerful nation says, "We know nothing," which is usually code for, "We know everything, but you can't prove it." To this day, people debate whether Hammarskjöld was assassinated by mercenaries, mining companies, Cold War powers, or just bad luck. Honestly, it's the Cold War version of Epstein didn't kill himself. Segment 8, Jimi Hendrix dies, 1970. September 18th, 1970. The greatest guitarist of all time, Jimi Hendrix, dies at 27. His Woodstock Star-Spangled Banner is still the only national anthem that doubles as both protest art and a face-melting solo. Hendrix reinvented what a guitar could sound like. Distortion, feedback, wah-wah pedals. He turned noise into music. He made guitars scream, cry, and occasionally sound like dive-bombing fighter planes. And then, just like that, gone. Another member of the 27 Club. And every garage band since has said, yeah, we can cover Hendrix, only to sound like 2 raccoons fighting in a blender. Finally, September 18th, 1998, ICANN is founded. That's the Internet Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers. Sexy, right? Nothing says global power shift like assigned numbers. But ICANN basically controls the Internet's phone book. The domain names that make it possible to type google.com instead of 216.58.194.206. Without ICANN, you'd be reading the New York Times at http://173.194.222.138, which is less Fourth Estate and more Wi-Fi password. It was a big experiment. Instead of governments controlling the internet, they handed it to a nonprofit made up of techies, businesses, and stakeholders, which means that your freedom online depends on people who argue in hotel conference rooms about whether pizza should be a top-level domain. Spoiler alert, it is. So that's September 18th. In one day, we got emperors killed, republics built, newspapers founded, wars started, peace crushed, guitar gods lost, and the internet's rule book written. History doesn't spread itself evenly. It dumps entire seasons of drama into single days. And remember, September 18th isn't just a date. It's a reminder that the world can pivot in 24 hours. Sometimes it pivots toward justice, sometimes toward chaos, and sometimes toward a UN plane crash nobody will ever explain. History's messy, unpredictable, and occasionally involves George Washington cosplaying as a Freemason. And that's why we keep looking back, because September 18th proves that one day can tell the story of the whole human experiment.